Side Hustle Show 247, how to shortcut your financial freedom with short-term rentals. What's up? Nick Loper here. Welcome to the Side Hustle Show, because nobody else is going to do it for you. This month, we're focusing on recurring revenue business models, highlighting a few unique ways to build those consistent monthly income streams. Last week, for example, we met Sam Gonzalez, a full-time police officer who's built his subscription box service to $15,000 in monthly recurring revenue. This week's guest has a different approach. She's built her financial independence early on, like age 29, age 30, through real estate, and specifically through the peer-to-peer rental site Airbnb.com. So today, Zeona McIntyre's business rings the cash register in a couple different ways. The first, she's a mini real estate mogul with 5 properties that she rents out on Airbnb. And the other way she makes money is through what Airbnb calls cohosting. Essentially, she acts as the property manager for other people's vacation rental listings and earns 20% of the nightly rate with very little risk and very little upfront capital required. Now, under that model, she's got another 15 units under management and is currently earning around $15,000 a month between the two arms of her business. There's a little bit of seasonality at play here, but overall, she's diversified to the point where it's become a very predictable revenue stream. So I invited Zeona on the show to learn a little bit more about how her business works, and if I'm being totally honest, to see if it was something I could get into myself. Like, could I buy a vacation home and make money on it, or at least break even on it when I'm not using it? This conversation didn't really go the direction I thought it would, but still ended up provoking some thought on my end, and I think it will for you as well. So stay tuned to hear how Zeona evaluates her properties, how her co-hosting arrangements work, and how she automates and outsources most of the day-to-day management of her portfolio. Notes, links, and a free PDF highlight reel that you can download are at sidehustlenation.com/Zeona. That's ZEONA. Before we dive in, let me take a moment to thank today's sponsor, ZipRecruiter.com. Every entrepreneur reaches the ceiling of what they can accomplish on their own before they need to hire some help. And when that time comes, like it has for Zeona, I want you to think of ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter's powerful technology lets you post your job to over 100 job sites with just one click. After all, it makes sense to cast as wide a net as you can so you can find the most qualified candidates for your job. And the best part is, Side Hustle Show listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/side to get started today. I'd also like to thank Incorporate.com for sponsoring this episode. Setting up your business the right way can be a challenge, and that's where Incorporate.com comes in. They eliminate the guesswork and handle all of your paperwork and filing so you can set up an LLC, a corporation, or even a nonprofit. Incorporate.com also helps customers stay in legal compliance with services like a registered agent and annual reports. Now, one thing to know, Incorporate.com is not a law firm. They don't provide any legal or financial advice. But this is pretty cool. They've put together a free toolkit for Side Hustle Show listeners with a business plan template, an incorporation guide, and even discounts on their services. You can head over to Incorporate.com/hustle and get this guide today. That's Incorporate.com/hustle. I'll be back with my top takeaways from this chat with Zeona after the interview. Ready? Let's do it.
I own 5 homes. I have a condo in Boulder, Colorado, where I live now. And then I have 4 homes that are single-family homes in St. Louis, Missouri. And then I manage with my team. We manage probably 20 homes right now. It kind of fluctuates between like 15 and 20, depending on the season.
Tell me about the management business. What does that mean? How does that work?
Yeah, so we call it co-hosting. Essentially, you just help owners that have homes that don't want to deal with kind of overseeing everything. You know, some people just want to like go on an extended vacation for a month, 6 months, and they just don't want to be worried about a cleaner not showing up or not having enough toilet paper or a guest not getting into their place if they can't be attached to their phone or email. So, I mean, that's completely understandable.
Okay.
So, yeah, our company, we cover all of the guest communication. We do all of the cleaning, scheduling. We'll order supplies for the homes. So like all of the different things, that's a lot more stuff than you'd think, but like dish soap and laundry soap and sponges and everything. We'll oversee any maintenance that happens. Like if the toilet's plugged, it needs to happen like yesterday, not in 3 days. So just kind of all that stuff to kind of make it very peaceful for the owner. And at the end of the month, we send them little invoices of like, this is all the money you made and stuff for taxes. So it's pretty turnkey for them. Not so much for us, but it's such a cool side business. And it's actually I think, very low hourly work for the outcome that you get. So I think it's a really cool thing if people are interested in working in hospitality. And it's something you can do from your home. So
Do you charge as a percentage of the booking fees?
yes, we take 20%. That's what our company does.
Okay. So higher than a traditional property manager, because like there's a lot more turnover. There's a lot more to coordinate. But
yeah,
to be completely hands off, like I could see the value proposition for the homeowner as well.
Yeah.
And here's a way to get into the Airbnb game without having to go buy a place of your own. So that's an interesting angle.
Yeah. I've heard someone call that like synthetic equity. It's kind of like having equity in a home, but then you don't actually have to do anything about it. So it is really cool. I think it's like a really nice low risk way to like give it a try. And also after owning homes, I think like at first it's really exciting, but I think some of the like home ownership magic has like worn off on me. And I'm thinking like, yeah, it's awesome. You don't have to deal with any of the maintenance and like big expenses and responsibility that a home has, but you can still like kind of cream off the top.
How did you end up getting those clients? Were those homeowners that you proactively pitched? Were they people in your network? What did that kind of ramp up period look like?
Yeah, everything's been word of mouth for me. I had been doing Airbnb in Boulder from like 2012 to, till now, right? But I had done it for like 4 years and everybody knew that I did it, just like all of my friends. And I had trained a ton of people in town that were like trying to get started and just turned a ton of people onto it. So it was really easy when people started having questions, they would always come to me. And yeah, I just had a friend who was like too busy. She worked full time and had a few homes and she started me on it. And then, yeah, clients just kept rolling in. So this side business of mine really exploded and it's only been going for a year and it's just kind of really taken over. It's like its own animal now.
Okay. So you're doing the massage school thing and you start by renting out a spare room in your own place. You start by renting out your whole condo and go crash with friends. Like what was like your first booking?
All of the above. No. So yeah, I had a roommate and I had like a 2-bedroom. I started renting my room and then I would rent her room when she was gone. And I was just kind of giving her a cut for putting up with me. And I was just like testing the system.
Okay.
And then after she left, she was only there for a couple of months. So I knew like I had this like lead time to try it. And then otherwise I'd have to get like a real roommate or just keep up with the Airbnb thing. And I just never needed a roommate again. So then I had a different listing. I had 3 listings. I had one for each room as like private rooms. And then I had one for the entire apartment. And then I would just go stay with friends or a boyfriend or go on a trip or do something. It was pretty much like, I just didn't have the luxury to say like, oh, a booking came in and I'm going to turn it down. So there was a few years that I lived like that where it was like, cash is king, I'm out. I'll just figure it out,
Okay.
And I figured out all kinds of trades with friends in town for babysitting or different things to stay in their homes. So, I don't know if everybody would want to do that, but like for me, I didn't have to have a real job. So like it was totally worth it.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to go about it. And then you said, okay, well, I'm going to need more inventory if I want to scale this thing.
Yeah. So way back in the day when Airbnb was like pretty much unknown. Airbnb started in 2008, but I heard about it in 2011. And I still think like so many people didn't know about it until like maybe 2 years ago. So back in the day, yeah, most people just operated out of apartments and they were just subletting. And like there were no city rules about it. It wasn't written up in leases yet against it. So it was fine. Like I negotiated with each one of my landlords that like we had a deal that I could sublease. And I just said, I travel for business, whatever. And so it's definitely a gray area. And I don't really recommend people doing that now since Airbnb is so known and it'd be easier to be caught. But yeah, I kind of just did it that way. So I ended up going and getting another apartment.
Oh, so you were leasing the apartment at the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I was like a super broke student when I first started.
Okay. Fair enough.
Totally. And it's allowed me to build up to this place of being able to buy a bunch of places, which was like a dream I never thought I'd be able to do in a very short period of time. Airbnb has given me a lot.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, okay. So if you're going to play the sublease game, make sure that the landlord is okay with it, unless you're really comfortable asking for forgiveness later. What was the first home you bought outright for the purpose of Airbnb?
The first apartment I bought was the one I live in Boulder now. I bought that in September 2014. So I'd been Airbnb-ing like 2 years already.
Okay.
And I still had another place and I would just go between the two of them. So one was a rental and one was the one that I owned. And I kind of just did that for a long time. So I was like trying not to stay at friends as much. And I would just go between the two apartments. So, I mean, it's kind of just like the hustle that I had. And it was also very hard at that time to be back and forth and like always living out of a suitcase. But I just kept clothes at both places and like made it work.
But there was enough demand even at that time to stay reasonably booked.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see how Airbnb has grown. Back in the day, there was barely anyone doing it, but barely anyone knew about it. And so there was definitely an interesting thing where people started to get worried that like, oh, too many people are listing their places. But I'm like, no, that means so many more people are traveling on Airbnb because they know about it. So it's like, there's always an opportunity to be scared. And there's always an opportunity to think of all the other possibility that's coming with the changes, you know? And so I just think I always was focusing on the positive outlook. But yeah, I mean, if I look at my records over the years, like the same place would rent for way more summer after summer.
Oh, okay. Just because
it's good.
More established or there's more
demand. There's more people. And yeah, I mean, I think this year is a little bit more than last year. It's not like a crazy jump, but in the early stages when it was like 2012 to 2013, it was like night and day. And it might have also been that like I knew better too, what I could get away with, what I could charge, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like a learning game for sure.
Well, help me out. Say I'm looking to get into this game. What's like the evaluation process for a property? Is there, specific areas you avoid or types of properties you avoid? Like, let's kind of break down what that might look like if somebody wanted to say, okay, this sounds like a good side hustle for me.
First, you want to figure out if you're going to try to buy or if you want to manage, because that totally changes things, you know? But it sounds like you're talking about buying, right? Should we talk about it from that angle?
Yeah, let's say this is a unique angle on the real estate investing thing, and this is what I want to go for.
Yeah, so I'm really about profit margin. And so a lot of people want to buy something where they live and know. And I can tell you from my examples, I can just give you a quick example. Like the condo I own in Boulder is only a 1-bedroom and it's like $300,000. And it rents with Airbnb. I can probably get in the high season like $4,000 a month, and in the low season maybe, I don't know, $1,900 to like $25 or something like that. But I have homes in St. Louis that I bought for like $52,000, and that home does like between $1,600 to like $3,000 in the summer. And so profit margin over there is way better, even though it's a 2-bedroom house. And you'd think like a 2-bedroom house in Boulder, like that'll bring in all this money, but it's going to cost you $800,000 to buy. So I don't think that's like one of the big things about real estate. Just because you like to live there doesn't mean it's a good place to invest.
Okay.
So I think that's like a thing to look at is the profit margin. And there's a lot of opportunity in the Midwest. There still is. And then the South. So I can definitely go into like specific places that I've heard about, but I haven't done research on all these markets because I've sort of changed my strategy. I'm less buying now and I'm more managing. So it's just a little bit different. But yeah, I would look for a market where the profit margin made sense. And then the very next thing is looking at the local laws, because that's kind of been a big thing that's changed in Airbnb is that now everybody knows about it and they're trying to put some sort of tax on it. And most of the rules make it so that you have to be owner occupied. So that's how it's like just gangbusters for people that want to be co-hosts, because there's tons of people that are owners that have full-time jobs. They don't even want to think about being Airbnb managers, but they want to go travel and they want to make money off their place. So like that's never going to dry up. That's just getting better and better. But you can't own 10 homes in the same place and say that you're the owner and you're occupying part of the year.
Sure.
I've tried. You can't do it. So that's sort of the thing that's kind of changed it a lot. So there are definitely places that don't have the rules yet, but you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, the local laws, that can be scary because that could change at any time, or even like if it's a condo complex or apartment complex, the association could change the rules at any time and kind of pull the carpet out from under you there. Yeah. I was going to ask, what would you consider a good profit margin or a good ROI on your down payment or whatever. We can talk about where the capital comes from and that stuff in a minute.
Yeah. So I don't know how many places you can still find this, but when I was buying in St. Louis a couple years ago, I was always looking for 10%. I wanted to be able to make 10% of like the total what I paid. So I'm trying to just put this in like simple terms and not be all real estate-y. But say I have a house that's $52,000. I want to make at least $5,200 a year on a long-term tenant. So my worst case scenario, I want to know that I can do that. So the homes that I was buying, people are renting them between like $800 a month to like $1,000 or whatever, something like that. And I knew I could recover that. So with Airbnb, because I wasn't sure exactly how much I was going to make on Airbnb and whatever, just so happens it turns out to be double and I'm doing like 20%, which is freaking awesome. But in case that ever changes, I wanted to make sure my worst case scenario was still a good situation.
Okay. So worst case, I can do a long-term lease that kind of matches the 1% rule, or it's going to, like you said, that 10% return.
Yeah.
And then anything on top of that, the vacation rental stuff is kind of like gravy returns. And in your case, it doubled. So that $52,000 property is bringing in $10,000 a year in profit.
Yeah. So, I mean, these homes, I sort of realized that like, wow, you can pay off a whole house in like 4 to 5 years. So that's really nice.
Yeah, that's nuts. Well, okay, so you said it's going to take 4 or 5 years to pay it off. Did you just say, gosh, a $52,000 house, I could come up with that down payment? But some of the $300,000 condo or the $800,000 vacation house up at Lake Tahoe, that is a little bit harder to swallow if you're trying to come up with either owner-occupied financing or investor financing.
Totally.
Where did you get the money to build this portfolio?
Yeah. So the first house, I got private lending. I talked to a friend who was in real estate and I knew he had the money and I just got brave. And I asked him for the money for my condo. And I got really lucky because at the time I bought the condo for $162. And all of a sudden, right after I bought it, we had a big boom. And so now it's worth like $300. So I just got lucky in there. Yeah. So he lent me the money and then I had a loan with him. So I had the down payment, but I got a private loan because I knew that I probably didn't make enough. And because I was only working for myself, it was going to be tricky to get a loan.
Okay. Would that be considered like a hard money loan or just like a private loan?
Yeah, hard money loan. I mean, he's a private lender, but if you technically say private loan, that's like what people think of that they can get from a bank. It's not a bank. You go to a person who just has the cash and then you guys work out the terms. We still had a contract and a promissory note and like everything, but it's just a little bit different.
Okay. Is it a 30-year note or is it like, okay, now I got a balloon payment that's coming due?
Yeah, that's what it is. The balloon payments, I don't recommend that. Now that I've done it, I just don't think that's the best way to go. And since I've gone through, when I was at a space where I was buying homes a lot, because I bought like all 5 of my homes in like 2.5 years or something, everybody started going like, oh, I want to give you money. Like you should buy a house with me. I have a couple people I bought houses with. So it was like a lot easier to find money at that time.
So that capital source is kind of dried up for you? What's going on there? Or why do you think that is?
It hasn't dried up for me. I just decided I don't know that I want to buy homes right now.
Okay. Why is that?
People still come to me. I just find that these homes, they make really good money. The return is great, but some of them are like 100 years old. Some of them are a little older. Some of them are a little younger than that, but they're right around there. And there's so much maintenance. Yeah. I mean, it's just, they're like little babies and they always need something. And I think that I've just gotten to a place where I'm realizing like, oh, I think the money would be like so much chiller if it was just sitting in like a mutual fund at Vanguard and I never had to think about it. Do you know what I mean? So yes, it's like real estate can have this sexy thing and it can have the big gains and there's a lot of possibility, but there's a whole realistic side to it that I think a lot of people like don't see. They're seeing like the shiny part. And so I still think it's worth it if you're like young and excited and want to do it.
Yeah.
So that's why I think like the whole co-hosting angle is awesome because you really have like none of that risk. And if you're done with the contract with the people, you just like wipe your hands and walk away. Like you're done. So I don't know. It's been an interesting ride for sure, but I think that for now I'm not buying homes.
Fair enough. Yeah, well,
for a bit.
It's you gotta align it with your goals, and hey, that mutual fund is not going to be calling you in the middle of the night with some horrible repair problem, but it's also probably not going to get you 20% a year.
No, not necessarily, but you only need so much. So it all depends on how much, once you get the amount of money you need there, then it's making enough for you every year, and you can just kind of retire. I like that.
That's the dream. So it sounds like you've had some headaches from this business. I'm curious to hear what's like the worst thing that's happened, or like what are like the most annoying things that happen as a result of like being the owner of record.
I'm mostly just being a whiner because I'm super lucky. Like I haven't had huge stuff, because I can imagine. Like you could have crazy floods and like, I don't know, every single appliance could go out or something crazy. Like I did have some issue with a toilet that backed up and then the basement got like poopy water. And so that ended up costing me like $2,800 because like insurance only covered so much.
Okay.
So that was a little bit like sad. But it's not the end of the world, and it's money I already had, so I didn't have to do anything like crazy about it. You just sort of look at the bottom line at the end of the month and go like, I guess we didn't really make money this month.
Right.
Oh, well, that's fine. But it's just knowing, like I have like a Rolodex like in my head of all of the homes and what they need next and when I'm going to do it. It's like these schedules that are like constantly living in me. So I can't imagine the people that have 100 homes. I know these people. I think they're psychotic.
Like, how much is enough,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I also would say it's super different when you have a long-term tenant and you just have like a management company that you pay and you're not dealing with it all the time. Yeah, I think that's how those people have, 40 doors or 300 doors or whatever. You can have a lot of places if you're not involved in the day-to-day. Yeah. But I think with Airbnb, like you can't be a slumlord. Like you have to have a certain quality, not saying that all those people do that, but it's like a long-term tenant will let like the fridge make like a weird noise for 5 years. Like they don't care. But an Airbnb tenant will tell you about every like little spot on the carpet or the wall or a crack somewhere, or like they will tell you everything. So you got to keep the place up.
Yeah. You're running a hotel basically.
Yeah.
High expectations.
Yeah.
Fair enough. No, I'm, that's actually cool to hear that like, hey, look, I don't need to have a portfolio of 10 or 20 properties to support me, to support my family, to support my lifestyle. It's like, what's enough?
Yeah.
But maybe from the selfish standpoint, like if I wanted to do this, I'm like always love up at Lake Tahoe and kind of the Nevada side would be a good tax shelter. So if I'm looking at that, could I acquire something owner occupied and then not necessarily be required to live there year round and rent it out the other part of the time?
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing I would do is figure out what the city is. So if it's still city of Lake Tahoe, like look on their website, because these websites always have all of the regulations. So there may or may not be short-term rental regulations. Sometimes they call them like transient rentals or vacation rentals. You can look it up. But anything, they'll have like rental licenses for long-term tenants too. So it's usually in that section, but they'll have the rules there. So every place is different. Some places say like, we want you to live there at least 120 days or something. I don't know that they really have somebody there who's like ticking off how many days you've been in the house. In Boulder, they remit the taxes for us. So Airbnb like collects it and we never see it and they send it directly to the city. So I don't know how much information they're getting from that. If it's saying like, this is your address, this is their name, this is how many days they rented, or if it's literally just saying like, it's this person or this ID and this is the money, like you don't know anything about it. So, I wouldn't really mess with the city by trying to like bend the rules too much, but so it's kind of hard to know what they know.
Yeah.
But I also know that the city here has like one person who's doing all the vacation rentals. So they're not like driving around and like looking at houses, and they're definitely not ticking off how many days you've been renting. So it kind of just depends on like what works for you.
When you're looking into this, how do you estimate the prospective income from it? You just look at other vacation rentals in the neighborhood and say, okay, I think I can get $200 a night?
Yeah, so there's two ways. There's a website called AirDNA. I think they're really cool. They have, like, you can type in any city. Well, in the US, I think they have some foreign places, but I'm not fully sure how much detail they have. But any city, and then they give you like some free report, and then you can buy the report from that
Okay.
area. And it has like tons of analytics. Like some of it's like way over my head, but it's really helpful. It can show you like a range and what time of year and how many places there are renting and like, you know, their occupancy and just all kinds of stuff. So that's helpful just to get like a little idea of the seasons or different things. And then I usually put the address in on Airbnb search. So if you put the address in, it'll show you like your little area. And then you can see what everyone's charging right now.
Okay.
But it's a little bit harder to see for like other seasons, you know? So I generally just charge around what other people are charging and then I play with it. So I usually have my calendar open for like the next 3 to 6 months. Beyond 6 months, I have a hard time keeping track of that. So if there's going to be like an event, you might not charge enough. Anything that's out like 2 months is going to be some ridiculous price. Like I'll put it at a price that I don't even think I'm going to get, you know, but I just try for the highest. And then as it gets closer, if it's not booked, I'm lowering it. So, you know, that covers my bases essentially.
Okay.
But yeah, some people will book a year in advance.
Do you have a rule of thumb for your expenses? Because as the owner, my understanding is you're responsible for the electricity and the water and the garbage and all this stuff, which is, you know, in a long-term rental, you normally pass that on to your tenant.
Totally. There's not really a rule of thumb. You kind of just find out what things cost in that area.
Yeah, it's just something else to bake into your operating cost.
Absolutely. So in Boulder, when I had 2 apartments, the like last 2 that I was living between. When it's an apartment, it's like almost nothing. So I only pay for electricity and Wi-Fi in both of the places. I don't do cable TV. We just do like Google Chromecast, or you could do Apple TV or something like that. So literally like the expenses were like $19 a month for electricity and $50 for internet. So it's not like it has to be this crazy thing. But pretty much you could ask anyone in the town and they'll tell you what their bills are. And if you're buying a place, you can ask the landlord for the last like estimated bills. I always have everything kind of estimated and I bump it up to like worst case scenario. So I know that like what my numbers are going to be.
Yeah, I imagine. So again, looking up at Tahoe, I mean, you could have air conditioning expenses in the summer. You could have like a $400 heating bill in the winter. Like it could be ugly or it could be significant.
Yeah, I know. Even my tiny homes in St. Louis, I feel like, what is it, $300 to $500 a month in my monthly expenses, like not even talking about any sort of mortgage because some of them are paid off. But yeah, it's just, you're thinking about like with a house, it's like sewer and electricity and lawn and, you know, like I have like 7 different utilities or something. I'm like, what the hell? You know, nobody told me about that. So it's just like the things you figure out, you know, water and yeah, there's just a bunch. So, trash. Like when you're in a condo, you don't have that stuff, but you have an HOA and they can just like destroy you. So it's really hard to say what's the better thing.
Yeah, hundreds of dollars in HOA dues every month. Like
or just having them say like, you can't do it anymore. Sorry.
Yeah, and that's where you're kind of your point to buying at a price where, okay, even if I have to turn this into a long-term rental, I'm still going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the best is to buy like a duplex or a multiplex because if you own the whole building, then you only have to do like one lawn and one roof and one structure. So you can get more out of it and then you don't have anyone who can tell you no.
Yeah.
But a single family home is almost like more work than it's worth, I think I've figured out now.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you manage all this stuff? So you're obviously not living in St. Louis and you're doing, I don't know if all the properties that you manage are local to Colorado, but it's like, how do you manage all this stuff from afar? Like if we're 3 hours away from this place up in the mountains, how do you check people in and out and, you know, let the cleaners in and out and all this stuff?
I try to automate stuff as much as possible. So as far as like check-in and check-out, I have lock boxes or little like touch pads and on all the homes. Because I think nowadays people actually want to just feel like it's their place. If you walk them through the home, they're feeling like a little like walking on eggshells. Of course, it depends on the type of home. If it's really upscale and it has a lot of like weird gadgets and things, I would say you still need to give them a tour. But for most places, we send them out like a house manual ahead of time, and they have one in the home when they arrive. And that will tell them all the like little quirks if there's anything. I'd say the short answer is like you just need a team. You just build a team. So for my places in St. Louis, when I was kind of still just like doing everything myself, because nowadays I've like automated things a lot more, so I'm not as involved in everything. But back in the day, I just hired like a local area manager, and she was the one who managed like all the cleaners, and she trains them and she cleans homes herself. And then she would be the one that I would call that it was like, oh, this guest is saying like they can't get into the house. Can you meet them there? And so we just worked out like an hourly, and she kept track of that. And so you just kind of have your like go-to people. And I built like a little community of handyman people that I would call. And there are definitely times where you can feel a little bit helpless. You're so far away. There's an emergency. Nobody's answering the phone. And you're just like, I can't do it. You know, there have been a few times, very, very few for as many like hundreds of guests that I've served over the years, you know, probably thousands at this point. But there have definitely been a couple of times where a cleaner didn't show and I couldn't get anyone else there. And I had to just be like, I'm sorry, we'll refund you. We can get a cleaner there tomorrow. Like, you know, it's not what you want to do. You want to get someone there immediately. You want to make it never have happened. But it's sometimes that's the only thing, you know, it's still someone's house and it's not a hotel and it's not a perfect shiny business. Like, I think sometimes people take that risk in Airbnb when they're traveling that way.
Yeah, stressful, especially being like 2 states away and trying to figure it all out remotely.
Yeah, but it, like most times it works so well that it's totally worth it. So I guess it also has to do with your threshold of risk.
Yeah. So it sounds like, okay, so you built these teams and these systems for your own properties and said, well, now we have all this in place. We can offer this to other owners.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's actually not that hard. You know, I mean, for one property, you probably want like a main cleaner and a backup cleaner. You know, you want one really good handyman. And then you start to like call the random people when something happens. You know, you're like, oh, I need a very specific plumber for this or an HVAC guy. But you like look that stuff up when you need to, you know? So it sort of just happens organically. It's really not that much of a team.
Do you think it's an appropriate business for people to get into if they have no property management experience of their own yet? If they just like, hey, I want to get into hospitality. I think I have maybe the project management chops to, you know, get this done or coordinate all these different players. And I'd love to make that 20%.
Yeah. I mean, I think a good way to get experience is to rent out your own place. So even if you're just gone for the weekend, or if you have like a spare bedroom or a basement that you can convert into like a rental, try to get some experience like on your own dime, just so you're not messing someone else up. If you were really interested in it, you know, you could maybe get a job as a property manager and like work with a traditional real estate agent that manages homes, or find some people that do co-hosting like my company does, because they're propping up everywhere. I hear about, there's people in town in Boulder doing homes. So it's really exciting to hear about. It's definitely a thing. And I'm hoping to eventually release some sort of online courses or things like that, because there's definitely some quirks. There's things you need to know. It's not just turnkey. It's hospitality, and you kind of need to be creating an experience.
Now, do you do VRBO and some of these other rental sites too? Or is it like, look, I'm exclusive on Airbnb?
I just talk about Airbnb because I love them so much. No, I do HomeAway, VRBO. They're the same company. I work with a company called Guesty who manages all my guest communication. And they have a connection with this company called Rentals United. And they supposedly give us access to like hundreds of other websites like Booking.com and Expedia and whatever. I have had the worst time trying to get all of my things connected. So I'm not currently working with those sites, but I do think Booking.com and Expedia provide a lot. There are thousands of other rental sites. I just don't know how much traffic they actually get. HomeAway VRBO gets a lot, and it recently got bought by someone like Expedia. I don't know, but it was a big booking agency. And so I think they're even getting better. But I gotta say their website is really rough. It's so hard on the back end to work with, and it just makes Airbnb like just the most amazing thing. So I still think you need to be at least on both of those if you're gonna do it, because they pull different people. VRBO HomeAway has been away. They've been a company forever.
Yeah.
You know, they were the original guys. And so like a lot of older people know about them. We get a lot of Canadians through them. I don't know. It's just a different clientele.
Yeah. Another host I talked to said like half of her bookings came through VRBO. And I was like, oh, wow, I did not expect that.
Yeah, I think it also depends on the kind of home you have. I think Airbnb's bread and butter has been condos.
Yeah.
And VRBO has more homes. And so if you have more of a luxury space, I think it's especially good to have on VRBO.
Okay. Well, very cool. Zeona, it's ZeonaMcIntyre.com. Thank you for joining me. Let's wrap this thing up with your number one tip for Side Hustle Nation.
Yeah, I would say the number one thing is to just be really flexible. When Airbnb started changing and everybody was starting to get scared about the regulations coming in and the owner occupancy and all those rules, everybody would love to ask me. It was like the number one question. They're like, are you really scared? What are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to just figure it out. And I have. And now I do this whole co-hosting thing. And I never would have thought that's where I was going with it. But there's always opportunity. And you just kind of have to keep changing with the times. So I think like if you're a hustler, definitely just keep your eyes open, be flexible, and see if you can change before the rest of them.
Very cool. Zeona, thank you so much. We'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you.
This edition of the Side Hustle Show is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. You just heard from Zeona the importance of building your team, because after all, there comes a point where you can't do everything yourself. And full disclosure, I consider myself a recovering control freak who sometimes still relapses. But with ZipRecruiter, you can post your job to 100 plus job sites with just one click. Then their powerful technology efficiently matches the right people to your job better than anybody else. That's why ZipRecruiter is different. Unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. Instead, it goes out and finds them. In fact, 80% of employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within just one day. That means no more juggling emails or calls to your office. You can simply screen, rate, and manage candidates all in one place with ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use dashboard. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. And right now, Side Hustle Show listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, for free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/side. That's ZipRecruiter.com/side to try it free today. All right, my top takeaways from this call with Zeona. Number one, figure it out. There's this great video that Brian Harris put together, and it says basically your only job as an entrepreneur is to figure it out. And that's exactly what Zeona did with her Airbnb business. Started out, hey, I'm renting out my place. I got to go crash with a friend, and had to do barter deals. I'll babysit, I'll do massages. And beyond that, it was adapting to the market and then changing rules. And then it was building your team. And I really liked Zeona's call to focus on the cash flow, and specifically the cash flow in your worst case scenario. What happens if the rules change and you have to turn this thing into a traditional rental? Like, can you still make money that way? Does it still make sense as an investment to do it that way? So buy right and make sure that you're covered in that worst case scenario, and figure it out as you go. Takeaway number two is to take advantage of the piggyback principle. So the piggyback principle basically states that whenever there are broad sweeping trends like Airbnb, like WordPress, like CrossFit, like the paleo diet, like essential oils, whatever it is, like there's an opportunity there. And at first for Zeona, the opportunity was to invest in property at really, really strong ROIs. And maybe those opportunities still exist in certain parts of the country. And later for Zeona, she saw an opportunity in then serving the community of other Airbnb hosts with her co-hosting service or property management service. And she's done this well enough to not have to get a real job and essentially be financially independent at a very young age. So you've got to ask yourself, what are the other trends going on right now that you can piggyback on? And takeaway number three for me is, how much is enough? When I said at the beginning of the show that the conversation didn't really go the direction I thought it would, this is what I'm talking about. I was kind of surprised to hear Zeona say she's taken her foot off the gas because she doesn't need to keep pressing. She's got a great business going that more than covers what she needs to live, and adding more risk and more complexity at this point isn't a high priority. I've actually been thinking about this concept of enough lately, especially when it comes to new investments and new projects. Like, if this works out, does this make a meaningful impact on my quality of life, or is it just another shiny thing to go and chase? So as always, curious to hear what you think. You can let me know in the comments for this episode at sidehustlenation.com/Zeona. It's Zeona. And while you're there, you'll be able to download the free PDF highlight reel from this conversation as well. If you like what you hear on the show, be sure to hit the subscribe button in your podcast player app to make sure you never miss an episode, including the next 2 thrilling episodes in our recurring revenue series this month. That's it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, let's go out there and make something happen. And I'll catch you in the next edition of The Side Hustle Show, where you'll meet a gentleman who started a little side project in 2015 that's now doing over $400,000 in monthly recurring revenue. That's monthly, not annual. It's crazy stuff. I'll see you then. Hustle on.
Thanks for listening to The Side Hustle Show at www.sidehustlenation.com.